How come it's so hard to talk about done things? That's this week on the Badass Agile podcast. Greetings, team. Welcome to the Badass Agile podcast. I'm your host, Chris Williams. Hey, team. Welcome back. It's great to see you. I want to thank you for tuning in again, as you do every week. I appreciate you so much. This week, I want to give you something that I hope is really useful to you. Probably one of the biggest things I see in Agile coaching and performance coaching in general is a resistance to done things. Now, you've heard me say it before. Work on done things, not ing things. And when I say it, everyone seems to love it, and everyone seems to be on board until we start looking at actual performance troubles. Now, why would that be? Well, first, let's take a moment to remember why we're here. To create an elite tribe of leaders who truly serve their clients and communities by doing what matters and what works, relentlessly chasing value and excellence like a badass. There's so many resources out there about what you need to do to be agile, but we're focused on who you need to become in order to lead teams. So let's hammer down those fundamentals to create a truly unique and powerful force in this industry. Now remember, if this helps you, tell your friends. You can always drop by the Badass Agile Listener Lounge on Facebook. Links are in the show notes. So I know each and every one of you out there has seen this up close and in person. We have a team raring to commit to some outcomes. We have a team committed to growth. We have a team committed to agility. And yet when the time comes to execute, we seem to be standing still. Now I see this all the time. In my personal life, in the forge, I see it with my clients. I see it in my coaching practice that has nothing to do with agility. Everybody wants to improve, but for whatever reason, people get stuck doing the work, committing to done things. As a refresher, what's that all about? Well, my theory, my philosophy, and my way of living is about committing not to tasks, but to finished things. Little milestones on the way to a big outcome. So if my outcome is to build a website or make the world a friendlier place, it really doesn't matter what the outcome is. The first thing I do is break it into doable stuff. So for the website, you got to come up with a concrete name. Then you go buy a hosting package. When your domain name is registered, that's a done thing. So that's what I focus on. Not planning, thinking, reading, researching, contemplating, waiting, hoping, wishing. Anything that ends in ing tends to be a stall tactic because it doesn't result in positive motion toward your goal. So I insist on done things. I do this in the team rooms as well. It's easy to do in the sense that any outcome can be subdivided into a series of linear done things. They don't have to be stepwise done things, but they can be. They could be MVP or high priority done things. It doesn't matter. As long as all of the work that you do and all of the work that you track can be measured by one criteria, not percent done, but done, binary, yes, no, finished, ready to hand on to the next person, ready to be used in production, ready to build to the next step. There's a whole host of benefits to doing things this way, the least of which it takes things like meetings and planning sessions out of the picture entirely. If the 2-hour meeting doesn't result in a done thing, it's apparent that the meeting is some waste of time. The other benefit of insisting on done things is that once you have the done thing in your hand, they can never take it away from you. Either you use it, or worst case, you throw it away and you learn from it. Or set it aside for another time. It's all good when you're working with and focusing on done things. So, sound good? Well, how come there's so much resistance to it? Well, there are probably psychological reasons. The first thing that happens when you commit to a done thing is that, first of all, it's radically different than what you're used to. We are used to having a little bit of lag time to warm up, time to build up some courage by planning, thinking, waiting, building, accumulating, acquiring. But why would you do that? Why would you procrastinate? Why would you put the done thing off? I believe it's because there's something that inspires fear in all of us about committing to a result that's permanent, fixed, finished. Either it's the hard work that's underneath that milestone, or it's the fear of getting it wrong. Sticking your neck out, making something and having people judge it, making something and have it be the wrong thing, making a mistake. All of us have that little hesitation built into us, don't we? Now, that alone is probably not what paralyzes most of us. It's the fact that that kind of thinking has become habitual. We allow and excuse ourselves all the way through the education system, all the way through the modern work environments, to say, hold up, let me just read this book on the subject first. Let me just take this course. Let me just gather my thoughts for a bit. Let me get together with my team, build some consensus. I understand those things. I get that that's part of the human condition. But what I want you to do is to insist that we stretch and we grow. All of the innovations that you have in your hands, in your home, that you use every day, that you studied in school or worship and read about, exist because of boldness. Because someone was willing to move swiftly, to build something, to prototype, to make an idea real, to put it in the hands of our peers or the users or our colleagues and say, what do you think? And believe me, folks, when you start working this way, you'll notice an immediate difference in your productivity level, which I prefer to call effectiveness. When I say effectiveness, I mean our ability as individuals or as a team to smash home runs, to build awesome stuff, to solve tricky problems, to make things that matter, to create things of value. Now, because it's habitual in people to resist done, it's one of the hardest habits to undo. When I work in the forge, we all nod our heads, we all inherently get it, and then almost always, some or all of us proceed to break that commitment. And on the first check-in, we say, you committed to X, done, not done blockers. There's always that moment of hesitation, and then somebody says, well, I was about to do it, but then this happened, or then I thought of this, or then I wondered. And that opens up the door for more ing things to flood in and poison the system. So the solution is simple. Allow me to offer you this. There's two things that you need to do with yourself, with others, with teams to break that resistance to done and create a new, better, more effective habit. Number one, remove all the risk and consequence of failure. How do you do that? Reduce, reduce, reduce. Reduce the size of the deliverable, the size of the done thing, or reduce the scope. Size meaning how long you spend on it, scope meaning how much value does this particular milestone deliver. And then the rest of the job as a coach for you is simple. Draw out and seek to change behaviors when people don't keep their promises. We already know this. The point of the stand-up is to achieve three things, right? Make a promise, keep a promise, or if you can't keep your promise, renegotiate or let me clear the blocker for you. So drill into your teams that that's the real commitment. Committed to a done thing, it's either done or it isn't. Either way, as long as you communicated with me, renegotiate a timeline, renegotiate scope, or let me help you move the blocker, all is okay. That means if you deliver a done thing and it's rubbish, that's all right. The team will help you redo it, or I'll make runway for you to redo it. There are no negative consequences to failure. That, as a leader, is your job. And the only way people are going to get that so that they can rehabitualize toward done things is through practice. Repeated demonstration that if things blow up, if things go wrong, if they deliver wrong stuff, if they miss the intention, if they don't create the value they were targeting, it's okay. We'll learn, we'll repair, we'll move on. Now, the fear of making wrong things is one thing. The fear of how much work it will be and getting started and overcoming inertia is equally simple to solve. Just break it into a smaller piece. We do this in coaching all the time. I say to you, what are you willing to commit to? And you say, well, maybe 20 push-ups by Tuesday. Okay. Then all of a sudden, you say, wait a second. 20 feels too big. Or worse still, I get to the first stand-up or I get to Tuesday and they're not done. How come you didn't do them? It was too big. Okay. Well, what could be achievable in the next day or the next 3 days? Well, I suppose I could do 10. All right. By creating room for people to negotiate and renegotiate, based on their true capacity, what they're truly capable of right now, is how you remove the fear of overcommitting to too much work. At the end of the day, we don't care about volume of output per unit time. We care about consistency. And the only way you're going to be consistent is if you believe you can handle the load. Now, once you've done those 10 push-ups, you may discover that if I push just a little, I can get you to do 11. So maybe we work our way back up to 20 without you even knowing it. But if you've got a mental hurdle that 20 is too big, there is no amount of pushing that anybody can do to convince you otherwise. So 3 big takeaways for you this week, guys. Focus on done things. Things that are either complete or they aren't. They deliver value or they don't. Recognize that people fear committing to the done thing because they don't want to do it wrong. So just focus on its doneness to begin with, because the team can back each other up to worry about correctness later. And then we grow. When it comes to the fear of committing to the work, simply allow people to break things into smaller and smaller things until it becomes impossible to fail, and then we grow. In both cases, you're setting a baseline. You're letting people experience success, however small it may be, so that you can build into bigger and bigger successes, which will create more courageous commitments every time you do it. Try it out and see. Let me know how this works for you guys. You can reach out at badassagile.com or find me on Twitter at badass_agile. I thank you for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you next time, and until then, stay badass.